Well, thank you guys so much for joining us for episode 2 of Live and Loud. That was pretty dang amazing.
Thank you.
Do you know that's MTV? Live and Loud was a thing that they did in the early 90s. Do you remember that?
Shut up, old man.
BGSU is really into copyright infringement.
Cool. Good to hear.
The whole thing just got shut down.
That might get cut out. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, anyways, take 2.
Oh, no,
Let's get back to those breathing exercises. So, you guys, Rover, what's Mars like?
You can't handle it, man. It's
The
too
pressure?
much. Yeah.
Well, when Elon and I first got there, we were like, we got to do something special with this. So
that's
so
why
you
named
built
the
a
band
Walmart?
like
A Dollar General.
Very cool.
Sure.
Rad.
So I guess on the topic of rovers, we can ask the very stereotypical question of why
Don't.
are you called Rover?
Oh, no. You did it.
Oh, now you have to answer it.
Well, I don't know if I want to go into that, but basically, it just sounded like a cool, like a gang name, pretty much, you know, like a crew.
Sure, yeah.
And I don't know, the spelling of it is a little interesting compared to just having a, I don't know, normal band spelling, you know? I think
Yeah,
there's
it
something
does.
branded about it.
And it was one of our first songs that we wrote at the end of our previous 10 years, Silent Lions. And Rover was kind of the crossover track, that title track to the band. So we have a band title track, and we're like, well, we'll name ourselves that. We're not allowed to swear, right? I almost.
What? I'm actually not sure what we're
I
doing
can go
with
5
this.
minutes without swearing. So.
You can, yeah, I mean,
It's a good skill to practice, right?
radio cleanness.
I don't know, what does it make you think of?
Just the name Rover?
The name Rover and the presentation of what we do, like, is it create some kind of aesthetic?
Well,
Yeah,
you
I
guys
mean,
definitely have an aesthetic. There's
Yeah,
an entire
actually,
aesthetic,
yeah,
but it's
you-
kind of a combination of things. If I heard the name, and then even when I saw the name, it's different than.
I mean, band names
what
can
comes
be
to-
band names can be anything, and like you could argue that like 9 Inch Nails is a stupid band name, but it fits the music and the stage presentation and everything.
Right, you could change the entire name just by the sound.
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely.
And so the name is almost irrelevant. Your sound defines everything.
We knew where we were going with the sound when we named the band. We had all these songs like in our heads and objectives, and we were like, yeah, that just fits.
Yeah.
Because it sounds
And it
a
does.
lot, like a lot of what
And it
we
does. And I'm
already
not even so sure if it's just the fact that I heard the music and was like, well, whatever name came after that was going to fit.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the music, and it's
Cool.
extremely versatile also. That's one thing I noticed is that your sound goes everywhere, which is awesome. It's not, and there's nothing repetitive and never a dull moment. You definitely took me by surprise quite a few times.
Cool.
I might add, I'm also very upset that you started rapping.
You're upset?
It's kind of my thing, so I don't know.
Oh, it's your thing. Okay.
Well, not anymore.
You've laid claim to
You
his
mean
thing.
you rap in a 2-piece band? Is that what you do?
Just me and myself, if that's a two-piece.
Well, I guess we can't cuss, right?
You can.
I'm not so
Yeah.
sure you
Okay.
can, because
Well,
you guys
this
did
is
the
like
song.
this is like a if like it's a name, right? So the genre of the rapping stuff is called shit rap. And I don't know. I think I'm like a 6 out of 10 rapper. I think the point is I'm not trying to be like proficiently, technically awesome. I just want to, you know.
Yeah, but I mean,
I just want to do something expressive.
There are like so many different levels of hip hop. You know, you can be technical
You can be
or
a good
like
3 out of 10.
a poetic linguist or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there was just, you know, and this is another one of those things where it was just a combination of all things. You know,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
way that the whole sound came together with it was just spot on. I liked it.
Yeah, it's
I don't
really.
wanna monopolize this.
Jackson, what else you got?
It's really fascinating how you guys, you know, listening to your stuff that you have like out on like Spotify and stuff, how you're able to transition that to like a live performance. Like, what are some of your guys' like biggest hurdles to get over when it comes to playing live?
Which songs to play? Because we've got so
Yeah.
many. We have a spreadsheet going now with like 70 songs we've written the past 2 years, and like
Wow.
we were going through it earlier. Like, well, what do we feel like? It really comes down to whatever we feel like playing that day too. We're never trying to like have a big objective or like, you know, we're gonna try to market this sound or whatever. It's just like we like a bunch of stuff and we write a bunch of stuff, and then, you know, we just kind of choose to play. It's really hard to be a band like that now too, because I feel like, especially with like Spotify, feels like you have to have one sound that's marketed, or else you won't get picked up by the music industry. And I think to our end, we just don't care about that. So
We're not on any playlists.
Is there songs
We're
in
so
this catalog
disappointed.
that have never seen the stage?
probably,
yeah, I think so. I mean, all of them, the way we kind of recreate things live is still pretty low tech. There's no backing tracks or computers. It's just live loops and but there's a backing track on my phone that we play to, but
It's not to a
like,
click, you know.
Right.
Right.
We're just listening and trying to play in time.
So you're saying it kind of changes.
Yeah.
It's a little
never the same
different, and
twice,
That's
yeah.
very cool.
Yeah.
That's definitely very cool. It's a little freeing, and it's also a little bit more. That adds more character to it.
Yeah.
To everything.
I think so. I just seen too many bands have a laptop on stage, then go like, guys, we gotta stop the set. Our laptop turned
Yeah.
off. It's just like I've probably done like, over the years, over 10 years, probably like 1,000 shows and toured a ton in different bands, and I feel like I saw that at least a dozen times, which is a dozen times too many.
No, you're not wrong.
So when we decided to do this, we're like, no clicks, no
Yeah.
computers, just do whatever.
We choose to have amps and pedals fail and, the old-fashioned stuff.
What if the phone dies?
Right, yeah.
You put it on airplane mode, right? That's the,
Yeah, I don't get any phone calls during the set anymore
Oh.
when I remember.
I don't know. An iPhone seems low tech in a way. You
Yeah, I
know?
was looking into digging out an old MP3 player and just doing it that way too. That way I don't have to, not take work texts during our set. So
No
I like to have my
liabilities.
phone. I have my just in case my wife texts me during the set. I always have my phone on, just
It's
so I can
important.
just so I can see what's up in between songs. Like, okay, she's watching football or whatever.
well, like what we did today though is we'll just like text the set to each other right before we go on stage sometimes, and then use that as the template and maybe change it up if we're.
Yeah,
you
and
know,
we've been
halfway through.
doing stuff too. We come up with a set list, but then we're like, let's just throw this in there. We didn't do that tonight because it's more based on like if there's a crowd and there's some kind of reaction we're getting out of them. Like let's we call it what, like Jack White or whatever. That's the term we've been using. Like let's just go Jack White, just like
Yeah.
throw in random the way he'll just throw
call
random
them
songs.
out.
Yeah, call him on stage. And that's cool too.
Yeah, the way that you perform in there, like there is somebody in the room, even though there's not. Like
I feel like the energy of the entire universe is in the room.
Yeah, you're so active.
So there is
like the
someone
room
in
is
the room.
full.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting. It was exciting.
That's the way to be. I don't know. I feel
Absolutely.
like I'm not old, but I feel like I'm older. And at this point, I'm just like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk for you, but
It's
that's
like
how I
that-
feel when I'm in there. Like, if I'm gonna do it, I just feel like I'm just.
That's
gonna,
what I call that daditude, because you just let go, like I don't give a damn,
Yeah.
anymore, like you just let
Yeah.
the gut roll
It's the
out, and it doesn't
only
matter,
time
man.
you get to feel that way is
Sandals and socks. You're just like a lawless.
I don't know
human.
about that.
Let's not get crazy.
I don't know about that.
I mean, it really enhances the experience for the audience too, because no one likes to see a band that's really uncomfortable and just like awkwardly like, "Hey guys, here's our songs." Like it's always good to just be like full send.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
there. You're there to put off an energy, and that is an energy in itself.
It's not
Like,
even about putting on a show too, like quote unquote
Right.
putting on a show. It's more about just trying to create some kind of, like what you said,
it's an
create some kind of energy in the room, and then not having a plan. Because some bands who are bigger, especially you see bands who have like a real scripted thing every night, and they're putting on a show. And I don't know if they just tweak things a little bit, or just kind of you put this crazy energy out in one song, and then just see how it lands. And maybe people didn't like it, so you're like, all right, well, let's dial it back a little bit for this next one.
Tone it down.
That kind of stuff's important.
Yeah, you guys definitely have a very strong like aesthetical and just like it comes through really clear that you guys care a lot about how people see you and how not to the point of like you're worried about it, but like you have a very strong idea of what you want to be, and I think that works like so well for you guys, and just not being affected by like the outsider.
That's part of the fun, the total creativity of being in a band, being in this band. That was the idea too. Is you really want to shape. It's almost like creating a universe with your songs, from the lyrics
Yeah.
to the different sounds. And we've been talking about like it's a puzzle we're putting together. And we said we got like 70 pieces now of a 1,000-piece puzzle, and eventually it's gonna feel complete, and then we'll stop. But but it's like it's just like more things are going to fill in the gaps that we kind of know where it's going, but it's going to
Yeah.
surprise us too.
When we get there, yeah. My one friend I was telling him that theory, and he was talking to me about Picasso, how he did like 30, 40 years of painting, just trying to figure out his thing. And then when he got to this one point, and in his 50s, and he kind of looked at all his paintings and realized, like, man, I drew a lot of minotaurs. And I think that's what the reveal is going to be. Like, oh man, we did a lot in the key of A. That's really interesting. I guess I'll go die now. And like, as far as like the outside world, I do music publicity for a living, and like I've heard all the bands. Like I just listen to bands constantly all day. I want to make sure that I know what's going on, and then I'm also separated and not necessarily influenced by it, because it seems what we're doing is not conducive to chasing trends or anything like that whatsoever.
Do you find it difficult to separate when you go to write in ROVR after hearing every band around the area? Is it you have to make a conscious effort not to do anything that you heard?
No, I don't. I don't know why. I maybe just at this point I can separate the job and
Well, I mean,
on the drive to the practice space or whatever, I just turn my brain off from work. But I haven't had an issue with that in a long time.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that sounds anything like ROVR, so
I'd hope not.
You must be doing something.
Yeah, no, actually.
Actually, my last album is pretty. I think
Well, I'm sure we have some obvious influences if people know the bands that we're into, but I don't think we rip off one thing about the bands we like consistently.
We refuse to ask you the influences question.
Yeah.
I kind of brought it up myself, but we don't have to.
So are you guys currently recording an album?
No, we're kind of always recording. We try to get in the studio just like every month and a half and just record what we're most excited about.
Like
then.
2 or 3 songs in 2 days.
That way it's not like dedicating a block of our lives and getting burnt out in the studio. It's always like,
interesting.
These are the 2 or 3 songs we're most excited about now. Let's knock these out while the energy's fresh. Usually we've just written them recently, and then that slowly kind of shapes together into like our first record. We just call it more of a mixtape, the Welcome to the Inner Zone, because it's just a collection of everything we recorded that year. And we took some mind in sequencing it, so it had some flow, but it almost turned out like chronological or almost.
That's really cool.
I was just gonna say, like, after listening to it, it does not sound at all like it's just songs that you guys had. It sounds like a really like cohesive
cool.
idea. Yeah.
Well, it seems like that's possible, so we should do it that way. And I don't know. We're talking about maybe doing something that with this next batch of recordings we've been doing for a while. Maybe there's 2 albums out of it, and then it gets even more cohesive or something like that. One that fits in one vein, one in the other. But I don't know, to sit down and try to write something that we're going to write an industrial album or something, it's going to come out when it comes out. There's no point in trying to force it.
That's an interesting take on recording, rather than like this month we're cutting an album that we've been working on for a year and a half. It's just like, well, we wrote this song, let's go record
Honestly,
it. We wrote this song. Let's
I
go
don't think we like linear narratives. I think a lot of bands have these linear narratives where they're like, now we're going to be this kind of band, and it's all reaching towards this thing. And at least for me, I've been doing this long enough where it's just like, it's circular. Like everything is circular. Just the same trends happen over and over again. You might as well just kind of like live in the middle of the circle.
We'll see how that plays out, in a couple of years when we have more releases, if they all just sound like a lot of the same thing, or if you can really hear an evolution, because we're still, like we say, like we're still exploring different kinds of versions of the shit raps and like just writing a rock song and how that's gonna evolve without us thinking about it. Just naturally playing together.
I had somebody say recently that they're like, everything you've released, there's such a natural progression to it, and I was like, I don't think so.
It's probably harder for us to hear.
I was like, there's stuff that just came out that we recorded, like Dizzy, that song, it just came out, but we recorded it 2 years ago. It was one of the first, or wrote it 2 years ago. It was one of the first things we kind of really wrote, and it's just like, well, that was, you think that's a narrative because it came out in 2019, but we wrote it in the beginning of 2018, so like end of 2017.
Well, sometime in a song like G, which we opened with at the studio session, that we wrote that 2 years ago too. It was one of the first songs, like just when we were doing studio rehearsals, seeing how things just started coming out, and then it never felt right to record, and then a month ago we were like, now's the time.
Yeah, that's really cool too, to be able to write a song and finish it, and you're like, it's like a B+, Let's just sit. Let's not take it in the studio. And then the next time we did it, it was an A-. And we're like, not yet. And then this last session was like, okay, if we don't get it now, like we should just delete this from Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Just delete it from our memories. Like,
that's
just sat on it and incubated that.
And just something happened after.
It's just an X song at that point.
Right.
So does that sort of approach extend to what you do with your music videos? Like, do you make music videos like a distance after you record the songs, or are those typically more?
I think generally, well, yeah, that I guess it probably varies. We've got some really inspiring and creative friends that always help us with the videos, and they will almost like latch onto a song that we kind of show them before we release it, and they're like, yeah, I want to do a video for that. You know, they've got a certain vision for it, or we just kind of, you know,
we
talk
just
to
had a
people.
BG student do. He's a student here, right? Or maybe he just lives in town here.
Maybe just lives.
Yeah, I don't remember. But anyways, we just had a BG dude do a video. We'll show you before we leave. I'll put it up. We'll put it up on the big screen in there. But
who was it?
this guy Phil Palumbo. He's just like around in the scene, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
He
the BG music scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a definitive line between the students and the residents of this town. Yeah, it's
Is that true?
Like,
yeah, I'm actually not even supposed to be in here.
Can't tell with this one. I can't tell.
it's like West Side
I noticed
Story.
the tension in here, and
Yeah.
yeah.
It's mostly
Very
me
evident.
really uncomfortable right now. Just
You're making it that way.
But wait, that one I was talking about that Phil did, we had just finished that, and he happened to hit us up. He's got an incredible reel too, where I was like, oh my god, I didn't know you were this good. But like, he just hit us up like, I kind of want to do a music video. You guys got anything? And I was like, we just did this one on Tuesday or whatever. Sent it to him. And then On Style, the latest one we released, was like 8 months after, 6 months
I guess,
after we recorded
that
it.
did sit for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we
So-
knew it was going to be released, and it just like
some
synced up.
some songs were like, we just know this is gonna, you know, need a visual to it. I think that's kind of how we decide. Like, it just feel. Other ones were like, doesn't really tell, you know.
And you just put out a single when it feels right, or the music video feels like the right time to release that, and then eventually that single is probably going to end up on a different record if you wanted to. If not, there's stuff that probably won't end up on.
I
this
know
record.
big artists who will take a single from 4 years ago and put it on their new record. You know, like, just because it's Spotify now and everything is just always there. So who cares? You're just trying to get, you know. You're just trying to get your stuff out there. It's just like a straight hustle, which I don't necessarily like, but I like the idea of being able to like
adapted,
pick and choose. Yeah,
Right.
that's the cool part of like
it's
this.
like a double-edged sword in a way.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah. It's interesting that you guys have different different people rotating doing your music videos, because watching them, you know, there's a pretty like cohesive sort of style that seems to be involved with them. I don't know, like there's a very similar vibe.
Yeah.
At least when I'm watching them.
Well, I guess we're kind of curating the people making them. So, I mean, but like, that's just the circle of, you know, artists that we know.
Yeah, I'll just
they
happen to
like our music, and they get our music, and their interpretation is similar to ours, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say the newest one's pretty different, but not really. It's kind of like Plastic a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole new different thing for sure, but it definitely harkens back to some of the stuff that we've done. I don't know. Yeah, I just think all our friends are all into the same stuff, and we work with our friends, so it's a cool place to be.
Did you have like the aesthetic style for Rover? Like, did you have that envisioned? Because I know you said you had all the songs like envisioned before, like when you were making the band. Does that apply to like the aesthetic as well that you guys were going
we
for?
kind of found it, I think. I mean, we definitely knew to some extent, but there's just been a lot of exploring and figuring stuff out. I used to, I don't know, wear like coats and sunglasses when we performed. Like, it was more of like a
That's true.
yeah.
No lie.
I don't know. It was even the performances at first were a little different, and it was a little less. It's gotten a little more punk, I guess. Yeah, more raw.
It was a
Glitch
little
Glitch punk.
right.
You know what's up.
You've read the genre tags.
We've
I've
gotten
studied
glitch
that.
punkier.
It was a little more anti-performance at first,
Yeah,
but
right.
and just on a way to try something new. And some songs still find that, but I think gradually we just kind of not loosened up, but just found the natural energy rather than maybe that thought process of let's try to hold something.
Yeah,
back
it's
in
less. It
different
was more of a
parts.
performance at first, I think.
Yeah,
And now
which was
like
fun.
Yeah, but no, like I said, less of a performance, more of just creating. I don't know. I kind of wish like, people have like podcasts or whatever. I kind of wish I just had like a VR machine that people could go into my brain to understand Rover a little bit better.
So was the previous band anything like this? You guys were in a band together before this, yeah?
Yeah, same
Yes.
same exact. Just Matt on drums, me on bass and samples and stuff. But
Oh, and was it anything like Rover?
it was pretty different songwriting style wise. We were just writing indie rock songs,
Yeah, it was maybe that side of the band is still in Rover, but well, we obviously have got the whole rainbow now.
The bass, heavy bass. Silent Lions, we called that heavy soul, and we still call Rover heavy soul. So like that, heavy soul is like the sound of the instruments, and with Rover, like future metal, glitch punk, shit rap. That's all the aesthetic, That's like kind of like the essence of the band, and that's all brand new to Rover. Before that, Silent Lions was just more of like one kind of lane we were staying in.
Is that why you decided to just like completely like rebrand as Rover? Was
Well,
because you felt yourself?
we weren't allowed to use the name anymore, which is a whole story.
Yeah, it was a good time to stop it though, because we were ready for the next step of evolution, but we weren't quite there, and taking a break and coming back, it was like waiting for us.
We tried to do a Silent Lions LP, and it felt like a less good version of Rover, kind of what we were putting together. We hadn't quite figured out the secret sauce or whatever, and then we took a break.
It was probably just the idea of trying to do an LP too. We hadn't formulated the idea of just.
We were trying to fill in the gaps of like what we were trying to do.
So everything's
just to have 10 songs,
It's like really free form for you guys.
It feels that way a lot of times.
I've always felt like this is more akin to being like a jazz musician in the 60s. Just kind of writing whatever comes out, writing what you're feeling,
Recording
gigging when you can.
want.
Yep.
I mean, it
Sessions frequently.
creates a real atmosphere and feeling, but at the bottom line, it just seems a lot less stressful.
Yeah,
I mean, when you're talking about like,
agree.
because like
We can have lives outside of this, And with Silent Lions, we toured like 150 shows in 2 years. That's like all we did,
Yeah.
and that's fine to some extent, but also it's a really slippery slope to go down for any band to tour that much. And I don't think it's really conducive to like the 21st century anymore, because that's not like the model. You're not trying to go get signed to a big label to what? Get you distributed to like what you could basically do yourself.
Yeah.
Like you should just like have a Patreon or something and have 500 people that support your band and pay the bills that way.
People that
That'd
like
be
what you're
that'd
doing,
be a cool way. That'd be a cool
want to
goal
hear
for
what
this,
you're doing, want to
Yeah.
hear you progress.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear you sell out in 10 years because you're doing what you were
I mean,
contractually obligated
a record
to do.
label is like a bank loan,
That's what it is, and then eventually
Yeah.
you have to pay up. And what
Yeah.
happens
So
when you pay
why
up-
would you do that? Yeah.
What happens when you pay up is you end up selling out, and you're one of those acts that like
And-
Miley Cyrus is doing that thing again.
Yeah, and
She's
labels
paying her
can.
loan. That's what she's doing.
right.
And you got to make the record company's money back to them before you make a penny.
It seems like it's such dirty
Or else
business. Like
you're
you
dropped.
said, a Patreon, you have your actual like people that are really involved in you and what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Enough that they devoted their time and money to you specifically. It's just so much more personal, and that's just kind of like I think.
And we can, like theoretically, we've thought about this stuff and talked about it. Maybe there's a way to do something like that, or we've talked about doing just more like, boots on the ground kind of thing for what we're trying to do. But I don't know, it just feels like we can still just exist regionally too. And I almost feel like bands need to stay regional. So many bands try to tour nationally, and what happens is they get big in their town. They have the ability to go tour nationally, which is fine and it's good, but then they just focus on that and they burn themselves out, and then their hometown loses a really good band. And I don't know, we could kind of just do this as long as we want. And if there's a way to have like a grassroots thing to support us as opposed to...
Yeah, if you could do it, why not?
Yeah. I mean, another band I was in after Silent Lions got signed, and it was that experience where it was just like, I guess we'll give you 85% of everything we make. Like, it's just so stupid. Like, obviously hindsight's 2020, and it was just like a stepping stone to get to the next thing we were trying to do. But like, I don't know, that model should just die out. Like,
And
it
a
is.
label can restrict when you're releasing music, how it's presented, where we control the frequency and the output and everything. And
we live in the future now. We
Right.
have more control.
Yeah, we actually do.
We live here now, and we have control over what we're doing and who gets it and how we distribute it. And I mean, it's like a whole new era. It's freedom for us. So why would you just sign yourself to something? Like, why would you decide to do that?
Yeah.
Like you said, it should die. Let it die out.
Yeah, and it is. There's it'll always be there in a way, but I think it's becoming more of a niche idea. Like those whatever like surveys about CDs selling less than vinyl this year. They always say that, like, CDs are selling less and less, or like, I don't know. I just think all that stuff is goofy. Like, it's just gonna become a weird niche. Like, there will be a market in the deep suburbs for major labels forever. The 20% of the country that live in the deep suburbs, like, that'll
they don't know
always
how
be
to
there.
use the internet. So
Pretty
they gotta
much,
keep
yeah.
buying
They know how to
CDs.
like go on Google and ask Jeeves, like
You just-
Google, ask Jeeves to pull up my
You
Facebook,
just
like
play it on your
ask Jeeves to
boat
pull up
shoes.
iTunes.
Ask Jeeves. Oh, I do have a completely unrelated question that just came to my head because you guys did something recently that I've never seen anybody do, and it was incredibly cool to me. The generator show in the parking lot.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
What inspired the idea? Do you know somebody else that did it, or did you guys like, let's find a way to make this work?
I think we'd seen some bands that had played outdoor shows, like surrounded by people, and that was
Yeah.
kind of we liked the energy
I like the
of
aesthetic of that. Yeah.
that.
There's this band Lightning Bolt. They're a bass and drums band from the late '90s. I mean, they're still around now, but there's a video of them playing, and it's just like a sea of people around them in a circle. It just feels really
Like totally 360.
yeah, and it just feels really primal, you know.
Yeah.
To,
Yeah,
to
it was a
like
super cool
experience
idea.
that. Yeah. So.
They weren't necessarily using a generator, but we liked the idea of just, can we play outside, get people around us, no stage? How do we do that? And then
It was
that
so
was
interesting
key.
too in that it was the band in Southwick Mall, that parking lot.
Right.
It's 60 acres of nothing, so it almost sounds like you're in a dead room or something. The sound just goes out and then it goes right up in the air, and it's almost like no one knew what to do. We're like, this is so, because like you're sitting there at a show and it's bouncing off the walls and it's
Yeah, that's just wide open.
the
out there.
vibrations are it's just like it felt like you just
And the
straight up in the air out into the universe,
The look
out into the
was great.
cosmos.
you know, the look was great because I mean, you drive by that and it's cool because it's not like the concrete jungle; it's a concrete desert. It's literally
yeah,
Yeah.
it's got all the
desolate, empty.
Well, and it fits
nothing.
the aesthetic. Like I think a lot of what we're influenced by is like futurism and Mad Max.
Yeah, it was like an
and-
industrial
and
park almost. You know?
yeah, primalism.
Because you got your generator, this huge parking lot with like grass growing through it, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you guys are out there. You are the factory at that point. You know.
I happened to see it because Peapod was there.
Oh, you know Peapod?
Yeah,
Oh,
we love
yeah.
Peapod.
He's
Cool.
great.
awesome.
Yeah,
and
he's
so I saw
super-
he was there, and I was like, well, I'm gonna check this out. And then I was like,
Well, we
What
gotta
is that?
show you that video because
Yeah,
that's
he's
a
in there.
big part of the video.
yeah,
Yeah, you know the idea too is like if you were a band in 3019, you would need a generator to go on tour. You know, when like it's the end of the world.
You're right.
That's kind of, and that's what it kind of felt like. Like, oh shit,
You're
like
playing songs about when I used to play in the suburbs, and people are like, "What's a suburb?"
what's a CD?
Yeah.
Well, it's a cool musical challenge too, because we did not use all of our equipment. It was, and we did
Mhm.
this. Southwick was like the feather in the cap of that experiment. But
we
it,
did some other spots, just
Yeah.
kind of more road. We showed up at the Mud Hen Stadium and just played after a game. You know, stuff like that. Just seeing how it would go.
Where'd you set up there?
And just by like one of the gates where
Yeah.
people were filing out.
yeah, not the main gate, like the back gate.
It just seems.
Man,
Thinking about that, it just seems really.
It's
doesn't
hard.
Seem right.
It's hard to pull off something like that. We're gonna try one more before it gets too cold. One more passerby idea for the generator thing,
Yeah.
where it's kind of random. We don't tell people and see if it works. And we have an idea of somewhere that's gonna be really crowded.
Do some
But-
Beatles rooftop. Do it on the rooftop on one of the buildings downtown.
foolproof.
On top of my car and have someone drive it.
Ooh.
Just fall off and die.
It's part of the act.
It's crazy you guys have that much freedom to be able to just like decide to do a show like that. And
We're lucky our instrumentation supports that too, you
Yeah.
know, as a two-piece. And like I use a drum kit for those setups that sound more like marching drums, so they carry in the air more, different than like the studio
And
and
I
live
only use one
performance.
amp.
He's got more of a raw sound.
Yeah, it's a little
really
more
breaking
raw.
it down there. And we play songs that are more immediate and loud, and because we know we're only going to play 3 or 4 before possibly being told to stop, but it never happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we always got to do our thing, even while we were at Southwick for a couple hours. And
Look, it's like Northwest Ohio. It's a giant playground. If you want to do something, no one's ggoing to stop you.
Yeah,
That's
we're all
seriously,
too
it's not
sad.
hurting anybody.
People are too sad to stop.
There's some malaise up here, and I don't know. I mean, I live in my little neighborhood, and kind of tucked away, and it's whatever. But there's some really rough parts of town. There's some really depressed parts of town, and I feel like that Southwick Mall. That's just like think of how many not box stores, but like just physical stores are going to go out of business in the next 10, 20 years. There's going to be so many places that look like that.
Mhm.
And it almost just feels like, well, let's get in on it early before that becomes a thing that other people figure out to do, you know? Also, it really helped that my friend Andy had a generator. Because those things are like $1,000. And he was like, yeah, you can borrow it. So I really lucked out. I just kind of put feelers out there like, anybody got a generator? And he's like, I do. So if he didn't, we probably wouldn't have done it. Like,
Going hanging out.
yeah,
Everybody needs a generator friend. That's the lesson.
it's true.
Jackson, you got anything else
Well, honestly,
on that list?
it feels awkward to literally pull out a list of question
No, that's all
ideas,
good.
but
What did we want to say to you?
well, just talking specifics about the album that you most recently released, or the full album, the Inner Zone. What is the Inner Zone? I'm very curious about.
Well, that's kind of the universe that we're creating in our heads, the ROVR universe.
Oh, okay.
And, again, like the generator show in that parking lot, it kind of makes you feel like Inner Zone. I mean, there's a literary reference to it. It's William Burroughs. He was a beat writer in the 50s and 60s, and he had it came up in his work. I mean, it was a real place, too, after World War II, where it was like one area occupied by like 6 countries.
Yeah.
We just kind of turned that into more of like a futurism thing, where it's like an area you could travel to where there's like no laws, or it's just kind of like this is unincorporated territory, or like let's put all the criminals in one spot. It's got a very kind of like cinematic idea to it, but
I think you just found yourself writing about it in several songs, or more than several now, maybe over the course of the first year, and it kind of wrote itself.
Burroughs was a big influence on my lyrics for ROVR too from the start, because he does this cut up thing, or like spontaneous, just writing whatever is coming to his head in that moment. It doesn't make sense, and I did a lot of that, and then I kind of started to realize, without thinking about what I'm writing, just writing words, I was kind of creating this universe. And then so that's kind of an homage to him to call it the Inner Zone. And I think that's cool. If you know Burroughs, you know the reference. If you don't, you can create your own kind of thing for it. But we want to definitely expand. I think we'll do like in like the Inner Zone series. Like, I'd love to do several albums that just kind of keep going back to that place, like sonically and lyrically, and really start developing it. But that it feels like that's like the headspace that we live in when we're writing a lot of this music. Not all of it too. I think some of it definitely, 15% of it maybe definitely
Good number.
inhabits, like On Style, that new single we put out, definitely doesn't sound Inner Zone-y.
Yeah.
But kind of fits the sound of most of what we do.
My other question about that album is, who is that guy on the
You
cover?
tell.
So that's Dean's uncle.
Okay.
And
He gave me this ring. He's like a
that's just his vibe too. Like
It's just a giant lion.
yeah.
I mean, kind of, yeah.
Yeah. That was for a long time. That was the idea for the cover. It was just like, this has got to be it. When we were starting.
That stuff really comes to me too aesthetically. I remember whether I text you or told you in person, I'm like, I got an idea for the album cover. It's just got to be my uncle. Like some weird, like him looking really, grizzled, like. That just seems to be the vibe what we're doing. And we did like a full photo shoot, and then we had our friend Matt in Columbus, or he's in Dayton now, but he was doing all the digital effects over it. And I feel like that's the Inner Zone. That background for that album cover, it's perfect. Like that's what I picture the Inner Zone looking like. And we wanted something that was just kind of fun, and like I just know so many indie bands who have like the same kind of artwork, like some shapes or something, or like a pastel background with some like, do you know what I'm talking about? Like indie rock has had a look for their album covers for 20 years. Maybe the Strokes started it or something, and it's just so boring. Like it almost kind of felt like in the face of all that too. Like, let's just make something that's obviously going to look aesthetically ugly to a lot of people when they I mean, it kind of does,
Yeah,
but like,
we were really digging this book of 90s rave art in the studio our producer had just lying around, and we were recording some songs that kind of had that vibe too, and we ended up using the movie Lawnmower Man as a 90s, terrible computer graphic.
Man,
Not terrible, very, very interesting.
good for the time.
Yeah. And it still looks really cool. It just has its own unique kind of feel, and so there was a lot of that we were just like, well, we got to incorporate this somehow, and it's crept into some of the first single artworks, and then finally our idea for like the background of the art.
And
for
he's
that.
holding a cane, but it looks like he's holding onto a motorcycle, and then so he put a highway behind him. You know what I mean? Like, it's so cool. And then you can just picture like on the side of the road, like doing a generator show, like wherever that exists, like, you know. And then just kind of feel like, why not? Like what? I don't know. What
So you
else?
said, let's
Yeah.
put my uncle on the cover, and Matt didn't ask a single question.
about it.
No, I knew it was perfect.
He
Yeah.
said yes.
He's a great guy.
It makes for a great first impression, like you were saying, when everything looks so
you're
similar, and
You're
then
like, well, they're probably not going to be normal. That's a good place to start
You're
with.
not
us, too.
wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I love everything about you guys, but that cover is just awful.
Well, it's good. It's a pleasant surprise then maybe what the contents of the music are, because maybe the music kind of flirts with that kind of chaos, but it never. It's not consistently there. you
Yeah, and
know,
again,
like
it just
listening
feels
to
like
the
a music
record.
industry trope. Why does your artwork have to look
Right,
nice?
no.
Right.
Like,
It needs to
who
look
made that
good
rule?
as a thumbnail for Spotify. It needs to,
yeah,
it needs to translate.
It needs to be snappy, you kids. Like,
No, yeah, and you're right. But and having met you and listened to the music, now I can look at that. If
And
I
he-
had before, I would have been like, "What the hell is this?"
well,
but now I can look at it
he's
and
great
say, "Okay."
too. Like
Yeah.
he's really into like you know, Iggy Pop and the Stooges, but also like he was really into nu metal in the '90s. Like he just like he really links up a lot of the stuff that he really likes. Seems to be a lot of the stuff that we like that fits into our music, and he just like totally gets it. And he pulled me aside. The day that we released it, he called me and he's like, "I want you to come over." I went over. He's like, "I just want to let you know how proud I am of you for letting the world know how weird you are by making this your album cover. Like, there's no going back, you know." Like,
Yeah.
and I think
That's
I think
cool,
I agree
man.
with that.
That's very cool.
That's so great.
Well, guys, it's been awesome meeting you, having you
Yes.
here, listening to
Thanks.
this incredibly cool sound.
Giving us your time. I know there's a
Absolutely.
lot to do on a Thursday evening.
I'm missing the football game that Sarah's texting me about. How the Giants are actually putting up a fight. But no, this was really cool. Glad we
Yeah,
could
it's
do
really
it.
fun. Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much
Cool.
for coming down. You got anything big coming up you guys might want to put out there?
When does this go on the air?
That is a good question.
That is an excellent
Because
question.
we're playing
not gonna-
Howard's tomorrow.
Probably not that
Not going
soon,
to talk
but
about that.
That's fine.
Yeah, I don't think they've worked out airing yet.
We're
so.
always doing stuff, and we never know when we're gonna drop stuff. Like I think we're gonna drop a new single next week, but we're
So
still
let's
not
just,
even
uh,
Where can
let's
people
just
find that then?
Drop your social medias.
Yeah.
sure.
Where can we find you?
Rover Future Metal on Instagram, and then just probably Rover Future Metal on Facebook too.
And that's ROVR.
ROVR Rover.
Thank you.
Excellent.
All right. Well, yeah. Thank you guys so
Yeah,
much
let's
for
wrap it.
coming on down.
Do you have like a end
This
thing
has
that you
been
say?
I
a
don't think
Bike
we
Rack
really-
production.
Thank you very much to Bike Rack Records
Sponsor-
for bringing
Aw.
these guys in.
Shucks,
Yeah,
man.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks.
Of course.
We met them at the same time you did. We like to pretend that we know everybody we're bringing in here. Like, oh, Bike Rack brought these guys in. And so far, we've met both people we've had in the same night they did.
Yeah.
So they're like, last week, that it was like, oh, how do you guys link up? How'd you guys link up with these guys? And I was like, no, we just met. Yeah, we all just met.
We're going to have to do something to weight it heavier to one or the other.
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
somebody's in our favor.
All right, guys. Well, thanks. Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a good night, everybody.